Hello and welcome. My name is Wellington. I'm a developer advocate here at Deskree, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about workflows, how you can manage them, how you can create them, and how they're related to nodes. Let's dig into it. So as always, I'm here to block the build or documentation, check a little bit about the concept of the workflow. A workflow in blocks, a fundamental concept, represent a sequential graph of interconnected nodes. It's basically a way for you to define the sequence of your nodes. So that's a workflow. You can check it out, more information about it here. Also, we have here the CLI explaining you how to create in the workflow. So as always, let's start creating our project. Can come here to overview. Then we have the first steps. In here in the first steps, we have this command here. We just stop this command and then we open our terminal of choice and we basically paste this command and let's create our project. So let's call it workflow example. Then let's create that HTTP. Let me go with Node.js. Let's install the examples. That's great. I'm going to install our examples and just let's wait a bit for everything to be completed. Good. Now everything's already done. It's already created. Let's just open up our workflows example. Let's open our cursor in this case, but you can use whatever editor you are more comfortable on. And here you can see the folder called workflows, also the JSON. We have POML, we have XML, we have YAML as well. And then we have here the workflows that are in TS, so TypeScript. The thing about noting about nodes. So about workflows, sorry. So here's the thing. Let's start by creating a new node so I can basically show that to you. Let me just update this real quick. Let me clear it. Awesome. And then let's go there to our CLI workflow and let's copy this command here. Let's generate a new workflow. Let's do using this terminal here. Great. Let me just add this helper real quick. Just type my password here. And then all we have to do is define here the workflow name. Let's say example, right? And then we can see that the example was created within the JSON directory. So by default, all of our creations go and they are created here. So what happens, how a workflow is structured. As you can see here, we have a name, we have the description of that workflow with the version, and then we define the trigger. Right now, we only have trigger, so you basically just define the HTTP here. You have the method, that is the get, we have the path, and then we accept here which kind of, of header gonna be accepting. In this case, is an application JSON by default. And then we have the steps and we have the nodes. What are the difference here? The step is going to be in each position that those nodes are going to be executed. So in a workflow, you have the positions of those nodes, and these positions matters because basically that node is going to be executed first. So you have a different input and a different output per each node. So it matters the position that you are putting them because your whole workflow can change depending of which workflow you are using and which position that workflow is getting put at. So this is very important to understand. The position of your nodes matter because it basically dictates when that node is going to be executed, depending where you put that inside the step positions. And then here in nodes is basically for you to put and define the nodes and then define the inputs that you're gonna be passing through that node. Let's get in here, for example, our countries. The countries example, it's very easy to understand. You have the API call. Basically, this node is a node that is inside the block module, so it's already defined inside the module. That's why we have this add nanoservice TS here. And then, as you can see, we define the name of the node. We define also the node itself, how it is connected to this node's file. So every node have to be instantiated in this file, so it can be basically found by the HTTP trigger when it's triggered, when that workflow is triggered. And then you always define it as a type module, right? It's basically the default here. And we basically put a name that you define of the node. As you can see, get countries API. We define it as again countries API. We then going to pass all the inputs that basically that node is expecting. In this case, URL, method, the headers, and the response type. Of course, in the input schema that from your node, you can define if that particular input is required or it's not required. That's something that you can define. And then passing that information along is how this node is going to be be executed within this workflow, right? Let's get another example here. Let's talk about this the meme manager, for example. The meme manager, you can see here we have a different method. We have this asterisk. So what does that mean? What it means, this asterisk? It's basically the junction of all the methods. So you can basically receive in this workflow the get, you can receive the post, you can receive the pull, delete, the patch, all of them just using the asterisk. It's like an any in this case. The path here, you can see that alongside this slash, we have this dot function. What does that happens here? What is that? Basically, this is a parameter and it's being passed as optional. So in this case, this path, when this workflow is called as an endpoint, it can't have or can't or can both options. You can pass a parameter or you basically don't pass any parameters at all. So when you are calling, how do you call this workflow? You then going to type hp point and slash localhost 4000, and then we have the slash here and we pass the name of the work. It's always the name of the workflow. The name of the workflow is how you're gonna be calling it. The manager in this case, and then if there's another slash and you put something that is not a parameter, let's say you came in here and you change this and you put something else like coconut. At this moment, the manager has to stay there in your URL, but you need to pass another slash here and then you have to pass coconut. That's how this endpoint is going to be triggered from now on. So getting back here to the parameter, the idea here is that you can pass any parameters here, but it's from you to define what this parameter is going to do. In this example here for the DB manager, what we can see is that we have here the context, we have context class dot method, so it's basically accessing the headers, and then we are using here the JavaScript tool lowercase, and we are checking if it's equal to get. And another conditional, we are also checking if the params function is undefined, so there's no parameters coming. That's how we use our nano service yes if else. So the filter request here that we put this name on is going to basically validate these conditions, and then it's going to also have steps inside that if else. In this case, we have an if that is checking first if you have a request method as a get, and also if the function is undefined. So in this case, we'll return this node called database UI, and always you can come and check on the nodes. Here we have the example nodes, and then we have here I forgot the name of it, database UI, right? So you have the database UI here. Let's just copy this name and come here to the index set examples, and here we can find this node, this thing basically implemented here. So good. Now how does that work? So let's see this in action. Let's basically run here npm run dev. Let me just have it right this time. Okay, good. And then we can go to Safari, and then we can open a new tab here and type http localhost 4000, and then we can put db manager. Remember that I told you the name of the workflow that you define. You don't have to define the workflow in your wells and in any other places. As soon as you put the workflow here, this workflow is available and it can be accessed. Let's go and access here db manager, and here you can see we have the UI coming back. We have this front end coming back from it. If you go to the node, you can see that there's basically an HTML file being rendered that, and that's how it's getting it back. And then that's why we can see that in the browser. Good. Now checking here the if, we have this get tables here from the Postgres query. So it's another if state. We have another step. We have another condition, and then all of those conditions, you can see we have an else here when the method is not one of the known methods basically, or it's not defined here inside the ifs. And then we can see that each of those steps inside the if, all the name of those databases, all the name of those nodes are here. They are defined here at the end on node. So that's how you can see them. Inside the nodes, we can see that they are all defined here. So we have the filter request defining all the nodes that are being used. We have database UI here, no inputs being passed. We have the get tables. We have those inputs being passed. We have the get table calls, and so on and so forth. And how does this strange things here work? Basically, you can have context inside your workload, and to use a context, all you have to do is pass this dollar sign with this bracket here, and then you just define the context that you're passing on. You can also use the context. If you check it out, the context.md here, we have an explanation of how to use the context bars because the variables, the context bars, is a way for you to state that information, store that within a node, and you can use that later inside your workflow. You can use that information that you store later in your whole workflow environment. So that's why we had those. But you also have the context response, and the context response is basically going to map from the node that is coming for that node. So in this case, of course, you have to check in the steps. The steps is going to dictate which node comes before that node, and then basically you have access to the context response, and within that you will be able to access the output from the previous node. And with that information, you can basically pass it along inside the input. You can use it for anything else. You can say that you use as a context variable. So yeah, that's all those options that you can do with it. So I'm going to be basically dividing this video into two parts. And in this first video, I'm just explaining the structure for you, explaining a little bit about the context. But in the second video for the next week, I'm going to be digging deeper inside the workflows and show you a little bit of examples on how to use the context, how the context actually works and actually can define. So you can basically start using that in your daily basis, and you can start using Blok to create all types of, all sorts of applications for your backend. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the video for the next week. Leave your like, leave your comments, follow us on X, on Twitter, follow it. Please also, if you can, go to our Discord community. We are basically engaging to people there, so you can, ask questions. The community can also give you some help on starting to use Blok. And yeah, I see you in the next one. Bye bye.